Starting lineup: Ambessa, Wukong, Vex, Akshan, Jin, up against Set, Nocturne, Annie, Lux, Sona. Rating of the picks for a casual game: Ambessa as a top, 5. Wukong in the jungle, 10. Vex as a mid, 9. Akshan as a shooter, 1. Jin in support, 0. Set as a top. We're gonna bump Set up from an 8 to a 9 as a top for the casuals. So that's a 9 for Set. Nocturne in the jungle, 10. Lux as a shooter, 9. Sona in support. We're gonna bump Sona up for the casuals from an 8 to a 9. So that's a 9 for Sona. Here in this game, it dawns on us that certain type of lanes attract certain type of people. And when you put together what is dainty, what is for princesses, and what sucks up all of the attention, where is the star born that has for decades reigned Hollywood and everything else in media land? The wild star of Babylon. Where do we find it? It's a little bit of a riddle. Perhaps a little bit of an answer to our 20 victories and 30 defeats. Perhaps a little bit of a glance at the future. We'll have to see. Put on that princess dress and waddle around. See what comes of that. Moving on. Kicking things off in this episode, we dive right into Ghetto Gaggers League of Legends edition, as this poor Ambessa player has all sorts of ideas in their head that hinge on very little reality. And we're already asking for assistance after invading the enemy jungle and we've only just started. I don't know how much you've seen of the world, but to get assistance in any case, in any situation from these kinds of people, is going to be a purely selfish matter inherently. If then on top of everything, you're asking for assistance in a completely impossible situation, good luck with that. We have here the initial face-off in front of the turret, the Set player also routinely helped by the lane minions. And this Ambessa player already has enough problems as it is. Going to end up putting together Eclipse in an attempt to pull herself out from this slump. And Eclipse is going to do what it's going to do and look very cool, while you die a dozen or so times. To be fair, Set, one of those champs who routinely ends up being a whole lot stronger than he looks. And this is, in many ways, interesting as a psychological phenomenon. Try to figure out how this comes to pass and how you strike up these ideas, since you cannot have possibly seen this succeed, because it can't work. Especially not consistently. If it ever worked at all, it was pure luck at best. But so, you have no experience seeing this succeed, this type of early jungle invasion. You had nobody teach you up in doing this. You yourself don't have a great number of experiences on this character, so you ended up just chaotically assuming for some unknown reason that this would be possible. Which reveals more than you would know about the thought process of this human being. Because if you believe that these kinds of things in a fleshed out video game would happen at random, you most likely also explain other things in life and society in that same manner. There is a structural struggle with action and consequence here that in all likelihood also holds you back from participating in other activities in life. We have here Akshan coming up with a devious plan to push the enemy back, but he's gonna have to retreat right away. And this Jin, I don't know if there's anything you could do to increase the chances more of this Akshan player dying. You're basically stepping out of the way to let it happen. And then being able to steal that Drake goes to show you a ward placed never goes to waste. You can quote me on that. And one thing you get with Sona is she has a Swain-like effect. This constant regen and this healing AoE. She's a mage who can almost behave like Mundo at times. Entirely unrepelled. And this is all self-harm if you're this Wukong player. I've been in this situation dozens and dozens of times. Just simply clone yourself into the wall, you will come out on the other side, and then you can either get away or come back for Nocturne. And I could have lucked out here and got the 4-spell stun with my Incinerate on Vex, but they just couldn't let me have it. Would have been a guaranteed kill there. We get more battle strat with this Akshan player. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. We have this Zed working the Void Grubs a little bit overzealous. But this devious Ambessa player is going to capitalize on Set's weakness here, but to no great avail. Set has one of the strongest comeback mechanics in a 1v1 fight, thanks to his mix of durability, sustain, and burst damage. Set's passive, Pit Grit, gives him HP regen based on his missing health, so the lower he gets, the harder he is to finish off. This makes extended fights dangerous for opponents who think they have him beat. You got that Haymaker again, and this is what makes Set so terrifying in a 1v1. If he gets chunked, he can store up grit and unleash a massive Haymaker. It doesn't only deal true damage, but it also gives him a thick shield. With Akshan struggling in the bottom lane, we're gonna have this compassionate Vex player coming down. Toilette Turk. And in great solidarity going to F around in the bottom lane. We're gonna have this Wukong coming up with a really sneaky plan to execute Sona underneath the turret, but lacking any kind of coordination. And this Jin player just as disruptive to his own team as can be. And he's been disruptive since the character selection screen. You have the right ID, you're a sneaky stealth warrior in Akshan. But you're just not getting it done. You seem to struggle with self-worth and channeling it through League of Legends. I'm gonna capitalize on that and take the win. Pulling back as far as I can to give Nocturne space to work, and Vex ends up leaving game. We have this beautiful duet between the Woman of Color and Set. Gonna eat that up. And just so much in that Haymaker, and it has such a pretty color on it now. Akshan using the same trick over and over again. He's playing Splinter Cell, we're playing League of Legends. You have Lux coming in with that zap. And it's trial by fire here for this Ambessa player. It's like the Equalizer. Revenge on Queen Latifah. Monkey King Wukong stepping in and get smashed just the same. We're having all kinds of fun here. Fun all around. You order the Haymaker, but you get the ult for free. We've congregated here in the mid lane to celebrate Vex leaving game. Gonna put timbers on the tower, otherwise called the turret. That curvy disintegrate. Perhaps the most beautiful fireball in the game. Standing there with my plushie working the inhibitor. Nothing to see here. And Nocturne is going to use that high natural armor of his. So deceptive, you wouldn't think of like a ghost-like figure to have such high natural armor. The reason why the pros like him. This Akshan player is learning how to play, and I'm learning how to farm. We have some strange decision making here from Team Red, thinking that at max life, with all of the blue team down, that it's a good time to get back to their own fountain and buy a bunch of items. Something that leads me to believe that my way of going about the shop isn't so bad after all. Break it up into smaller bits and pieces. Let's look at the game. You have this set player proving that a flash and ghost combo in summoner spell can work, and every time you see that it's an old person thinking they will be extra triple double safe. And this Yashi player, the reason why set is a 9 now for the casual, still an 8 for the lower tier ranked, but a 9 for the casuals, and he should have been a 9 a long time ago. Such beautiful 1v1 potential in set, such a straightforward, delicious champion, and no reason why you couldn't experiment with him a little bit more. Because people try all sorts of stuff on Warwick and whatnot. Almost anything that Warwick could do, Set could do just the same. Very similar champions. Simplistic but great. We have Nocturne going about the jungle objectives in a very unconventional way, but getting the benefit of the doubt in some of these roles, and being able to get us all the buffs we would like. We have myself playing Annie because I need a hug from that big teddy bear. And this is the most beautiful kind of game to express exactly why we're here with this champion when we get to Vex. We have the real Bleary, which is bleary-eyed, which is stop drinking, you trash heap. Trying to snipe a bunch of kills, but just no match for that Incinerate. Stayed alive though, and you went up against Akshan, you did great. We have Sona with very bizarre ideas about map awareness and porting back. It would be very entertaining to watch this kind of person play a Age of Empire game because you have very strange ideas about when to attack and when to defend. But this Sona, as I say, much like Swain, almost like Mundo for the mages, unkillable at a certain point. Works so well, especially in the casuals. It's deceptive and deceiving, but she really is a tank. Which means that I shouldn't qualify or score her as a caster hero or champ, which I did before. We have this Ambessa player, whose name ends in joke. I think you're on to something. Let's start here and ask, why is it that you think that this would work? I think you have a bit of practical Satanism in your personal life. You're trying to replace everything with chaos. You don't seem to be taking actions based on social awkwardness or social context. You seem to instead just assume that random things will occur for some unknown reason at all times that will completely flip your situation around. We have this Wukong player who needs to simplify his plan for games and start with something simple. You're overthinking it very clearly. Just be there on time and get there on time and you'll do way better. We have Vex, which is pretty much the reason why we picked this playthrough and this matchup for this video. We're at something like 20 victories and 30 defeats now for the season. When I'm looking back at the last 10 defeats, we see Vex behavior, because of course I should have known that what would have happened the moment that I said I don't want to be the star position is that it would get taken up intentionally by the most clownish people that you could find, and then of course everything would, like so many things in modern day society, be turned upside down, and so we would get the biggest jokers in the mid lane, which is obviously the most important overall position. So we have to stop this, because it cannot go on like this, and this is why we're here. We see it again with this Vex. You have the audacity to take the star role. We're 10 minutes in, you're leaving game, because why not? Because who cares? Who cares if you're screwing 9 people over? If the jungler leaves, you could potentially still win a game. If the mid leaves, you're done. And it's a lot to do with the fact that all these characters look like Ari, and they look like Neko, and they look like Annie, and they're all like 16-year-old girls, and here we are, and it's the beauty salon. It's what I talked about yesterday. And we're just giving 9 people blue balls because of the fact that you wanted to insert yourself because you like the color of the mage, or you like the little fairy princess mage in the mid. In a game like League of Legends, Lux types and RE types are the team captains. And if nobody will do it properly, then I'll have to do it myself because we're just losing every game over this. Then we have Akshan, whose name is Dutch for aim, which is to say, maybe you're mistaken about what game you're playing. Because you seem to go around like it's Splinter Cell. Then we have this Jhin player being wildly antisocial and always standing in spots where he's not needed and spots where he's all alone, where he's just grinding mobs by himself, and then naturally taking up the Void Herald or the Rift Herald. Jhin is one of the worst supports that you could imagine. He will take away what little setup there is for the original shooter and use it for his own purposes. He's an anti-support. Stop making up your own rules. If this would work, then the pros would play Kalista on top of Misfortune. Why do you think that you're smarter than everybody else? Why do you think that you know better than Jackie Love? It looks like we're grinding it out with Annie for now. You're going to want to see that. There's so many things changing at the same time. It's like a whirlwind. Let's try a bunch of new things and see if we can impact this win-loss rate. Taking a look at the scoreboard here, we see a very one-sided affair. What we see in this matchup is that if you have good mechanical skill and your enemy makes a lot of itemization mistakes, that you can get away with a lot. It will never cease to amaze me that people systematically believe that this item is worth 1,200 gold. It will also never cease to amaze me that people seem to be convinced that this small potential for a shield that you could generate for yourself, which, suppose that I'm lying about everything, and suppose that you could actually generate that shield consistently, which, by the way, is nonsense, and you can't. But suppose that you could. What have you now actually wrought? What have you now actually accomplished? To be able to absorb a single extra hit? Or something to that effect? It just blows my mind that people consistently value that more than, say, doubling their life pool. I have no words for it. It never stops surprising me. We see here a person who does not quite understand how League of Legends works. You have here purchased random individual items that do not go together and that do not lead up to anything. That is not how the itemization system functions. The point of the shop is to gradually put together significant items, frequently called legendaries. They consist of small building blocks that are frequently not even considered to be real items. You have here gone off and based on style or appeal, purchased here random building blocks that have nothing to do with one another. This will never lead to success. We can see here that at the 3-minute mark, Seth was already capable of putting himself into a much better situation gear-wise. This likely means that you had a clumsy start, that you were being confused by a bunch of stuff on the side, and perhaps you should rethink your focus, because as you can see, once you get off to this kind of bad start, it only gets worse. This is what we refer to and is one of the most popular catchphrases in League universe as snowballing. When we make a comparison here between me and Lux, we can say in a very conclusive manner that just dealing raw damage does not inherently lead to results. We can see here that I have the second highest vision score with 5 wards placed, and we see that this is systematically a problem on the red side. Moving on.
Have you seen my bear slippers?
Minions have spawned.
Don't be a scaredy cat!
An enemy has been slain.
Are we there yet? Skip, jump. This way. Try to keep up. Have you seen my Vertivers?
An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain. An enemy has been slain.
Come out, wherever you are.
Turret plating will soon fall. Unstoppable.
I never play with matches.
Your team has destroyed a turret.
Are we
Killing
there yet?
spree.